In Unit 1.1, we're going to talk about the properties of water. So please read through Chapter 2.2 in your textbook, have a look through the water lab. Now the thing to note is that water is polar. So as we know, the formula for water is H2O, and the oxygen has a slightly negative charge, hydrogen has a slightly positive. So overall, we say that water is polar. And because it is polar, it forms hydrogen bonds. And these bonds are responsible for those properties of water. Cohesion. Cohesion is where water molecules stick to each other. Adhesion. Adhesion is where water molecules will stick to other things. And cohesion and adhesion lead to surface tension. And surface tension is why a paperclip will float on top of water. Basically what's happened is the tension, which creates a force, pushes up and enables the paperclip to float on the top. Now if you add a drop of dish soap or washing up liquid to it, the paperclip will sink, and that's because the soap properties of the dish soap, it's actually a surfactant, break down the hydrogen bonds in the water and therefore destroy the surface tension. Some of the other properties of water: it's a universal solvent. That means everything dissolves in it. It has a high specific heat. Because of this reason, water will make up a large proportion of the body because it's basically resistant to temperature change. That means it takes a lot of water to, it takes a lot of heat in order to heat up water. And lastly, let's talk about the water cycle. You know that the biological part of the water cycle is transpiration, and then the physical part, evaporation, condensation, and precipitation. Let's move on to the next thing. In Unit 2.1.2, we talk about ecosystems, and in this we look at the environment, we look at biotic, which are living factors, abiotic factors of the environment, heat and light, stones, water, that type of thing. We look at how organisms are, how are they organized in the environment. You start off with a species, a group of species of the same type, or a population. A group of different populations makes up a community, and the community and the abiotic and biotic factors becomes the ecosystem, and from there we go to biosphere and then biome. Now, in order for organisms to survive, they need energy, and in order to need energy, they have to obtain food. Producers make their food by the process of photosynthesis. Consumers have to produce, well, cannot produce their food, rather, they have to eat consumers. So therefore you end up with this pyramid being set up with producers on the bottom and consumers up on the top. And you can see as you get to the top of the pyramid, there are fewer and fewer organisms. Now, this type of pyramid can be expressed in three ways. We have the pyramid of numbers. The pyramid of numbers talks about the physical number of species at each level. Then we've got biomass, and biomass is the amount of living matter at each level, and then the pyramid of energy. In most cases, biomass and energy are much the same. Heterotrophs are organisms that cannot make their own food, and autotrophs can make their own food, and therefore they are producers. Now, only about 10% of the energy level is available to the next level. We call each of these levels trophic levels, and we can calculate how much energy is available by using the 10% rule. One thing to note is that if there is some sort of toxin that goes in at this level, by the time you get to the top, the effect of that would have been magnified, and we call this biomagnification. In an ecosystem, many times organisms exist in relationships, and there are three types of symbiotic relationships. In this case, the first one is mutualism. Mutualism is where both organisms benefit. Commensalism is where both organisms, one organism benefits and the other the other isn't harmed in any way. And lastly, there's parasitism, where one benefits due to the fact that the other is harmed and ultimately is destroyed or dies.
Made with Doodlecast Pro.